Hi grade 12s. So today we are going to carry on with general trigonometry as we did in the previous lesson. Now let's check the statement that we are given today. We are given that in the diagram, below this diagram, the line OP is given with what? With that point P, of which the x coordinate is what? Is -3 and the y coordinate is -4. And then we have an angle here, angle of what? KOP is equals to what? A. You can say alpha if you want, meaning they are talking about this angle from the what? From the x-axis up until this line. Now, without the use of a calculator, determine the following. It means question 1, we must determine the value of what? Cos of what? Cos of alpha. But remember, according to the soccer tour, let's write so tour. Now let's check something. This S means what? This S means sine. This O means what? Opposite. This H means hypotenuse. And then this C means cos. This A means what? This A means adjacent. And then we have what? T, which means what? Tangent. Now let's check something. Here we are going to deal with what? With cos of alpha, or they can give you any angle, cos of theta or cos of any angle. This is going to be equals to what? This is going to be equals to adjacent over what? Over hypotenuse. Now let's check something. Some of you can say what? Can say cos of alpha is equals to what? Is equals to x over what? Over r. Now remember, here the x value is equals to what? The x value is equals to -3 and the y value is equals to -4. But we don't have the value of what? Of r. We must determine the value of r. But let's check something. Here we have right angle. It means if I draw a triangle here, I will have a right angle triangle, meaning I can call out what we call theorem of Pythagoras, which is what? Which is x squared plus y squared is equals to what? Is equals to r squared. It means where I see x, I substitute what? -3. In other words, here I'm going to have what? -3 squared plus what? What is the value of y? The value of y is -4. It means I'm going to have -4 squared is equals to what? R squared. Now what is -3 squared? We know that this is 9 plus -4 squared. This will be +16. This is equals to R squared. And then what is 9 plus 16? 9 plus 16 is 25 is equals to r squared. Remember, we are looking for the value of r, not r squared. In other words, I must make r subject of the formula, not r squared. How do we kill this square? You must introduce square root. But what you do on the left hand side, you also do it on the right hand side. In other words, here I'm going to have what? I'm going to have r is equals to plus or minus what? 5. Now remember, we are talking about the radius, and the radius is always positive. In other words, I'm going to work with what? R is equals to 5. Now let's go back. Let's go to the next question. Now here is the second question. The second question wants us to determine the value of what? Of cos of 2a. Meaning, remember, we can write what? We can write cos of 2a as what? As cos of a plus a. Remember, according to the compound or double angles for cos, this is going to be equals to what? This is going to be equals to cos of what? Alpha multiplied by cos of what? Alpha. Or you can say cos of a multiplied by cos of a. Let's use a instead of alpha. This is going to be minus what? Sine of what? A multiplied by sine of what? A. Remember, we said we are going to have what? We are going to have cos, sine. Cos changes the sign. What do I mean by that? It means now, if here it is positive, here it is going to be what? Negative. If here it is negative, here is going to be what? Positive. Now let's carry on. Remember, these two people are the same. It means when they multiply each other, they will square each other. This will be what? Cos squared alpha minus what? Minus sine squared a this is going to be equals to, I can write cos squared A as what? Cos of A squared minus what? Sine of what? A squared. Remember what is cos of A? Cos of A is what? Is adjacent over hypotenuse, or some of you can say x over r. Now, what is the value of hypotenuse or the value of x? It was what? It was -3. In other words, I'm going to have -3 over r. What is the value of r? We calculated the value of r in the previous question, of which it was what? It was 5 squared. Then we have minus, what is sine of alpha or sine of A or sine of an angle? This is always equals to what? Opposite over hypotenuse, or y over r. Now, what is the value of r? The value of y, the value of y was -4. In other words, here I'm going to have -4 over what? What is the value of r? It is 5, then squared. Now, this means that we have what? We have, according to the laws of exponent, we have -3 squared over 5 squared minus -4 squared over what? Over 5 squared. This is always going to be equals to what? Is -3 squared is what? Is +9 over 5 squared is 25. And then we have minus -4 squared is always equals to +16 over what? 25. And then I'm going to drop my denominator. This will be 25 over what? 9 minus 16. You can type this in your calculator, but they said without the use of a calculator. Now let's carry on. This is going to be 9 minus 16 is -7 over what? Over 25. In other words, the value of what? Cos of 2a is equals to -7 over 25. Let's go to the last. Now, here is it is the last question. Let's check the last question. They say to us, it is further given that sine of b is equals to 4 over 5. Remember, we said sine of an angle is always equals to what? Opposite over hypotenuse. Or you can say what? X over r. This is going to be equals to opposite over hypotenuse, or you can say y over what? Y over r. In other words, in this case, my y value will be equals to what? Will be equals to 4, and my what? My r will be equals to what? 5. It means I don't have the value of what? I don't have the value of x. Now, let's carry on with the question. Determine the value of sine of a minus b, where beta lies in the interval of what? 90 degrees and 360 degrees. Let's be careful of something. Here, we don't have what? We don't have equal sign. In other words, in this interval, beta cannot be equals to what? 90 degrees, or beta cannot be equals to what? 360 degrees. Now, let's carry on. We need to determine the value of what? Sine of a minus b. Remember, sine of what? A minus b, according to the what? According to the compound or double angles, this will always be equals to what? Sine of a multiplied by cos of what? Beta minus cos of what? A multiplied by sine of what? B. Remember, we said we are going to have what? We are going to have sine, cos, sine. Sine doesn't change the sign. If it is negative here, here it is negative. If it is positive here, here it is positive. Now let's check something. What was the value of sine of A? Remember, the value of sine of A was given in the previous question. It was equals to what? It was equals to -4 over what? Over 5, because this was what? This was opposite over what? Over hypotenuse, but under the angle of what? Of A. Multiply by cos of what? Cos of B minus, what was the value of cos of A? The value of cos of A was adjacent over hypotenuse under the what? The angle of A. This was equals to what? -3 over 5 multiplied by sine of what? Sine of B. Now let's carry on. Remember, we already have the value of sine of B. The value of sine of B was given in the statement, of which it was 4 over 5. In other words, here I'm going to have -4 over 5 multiplied by cos of what? B minus -3 over 5 multiplied by what? By 4 over 5. In other words, what I'm left with now is to calculate the value of cos of what? B. Now let's check something. We know that we said cos of B is going to be equals to what? Adjacent over hypotenuse, but under the angle of what? Of B. Now let's check. Remember we said y, according to this statement, is equals to y is equals to 4 and r is equals to what? 5. We need the value of what? Of x. We are going to call out theorem of Pythagoras. In other words, here I will have what? I will have x squared plus what? Plus y squared is equals to r squared. What is the value of x? We are looking for x. It means here I'm going to have x squared plus what? What is the value of y? It is 4 squared, which this is equals to what? 5 squared. In other words, here I have x squared plus 16 is equals to what? Is equals to 5 squared. And 5 squared is what? It will be 25. In other words, I have x squared is equals to what is 25? We have 25 minus 16. It means I'm going to have x squared, which is equals to 25 minus 16 is what? Is 9. Meaning I'm going to introduce square root both sides. This will be x is equals to plus or minus what? Plus or minus 3. Now we got two values of what? Of x, but we must choose one. But according to the statement. Now let's check something. According to the statement, they say to us our angle B lies between what? 90 degrees and 160 degrees. And we know that in this interval, let's check something. Okay, we know that we got two values of x was positive or minus 3. Now let's draw a quick diagram here. They say to us that our angle beta lies between 90 degrees and 160 degrees. Now it means our diagram will either be, remember this will be 90 up until what? 160 degrees. Now let's check something. Here on this quadrant, the y value is positive and the x value is negative. On this quadrant, the y value is what? Is negative and the x value is negative. But on this quadrant, the x value is positive and the y value is what? Is negative. But let's check something. Remember, our y was equals to positive 4, which means that between these three quadrants, the only quadrant that has a positive value of y is what? Is the second quadrant. Meaning my diagram will lie on this quadrant. In other words, on this quadrant, let's check something. The values of x are what? Are negative. In other words, here I'm going to take x is equals to what? Minus 3. Meaning now the value of cos of what? Beta here will be equals to what? Will be equals to minus 4 over 5 multiplied by what? By x. What is the value of a? Remember, cos of beta we said is always equals to adjacent over hypotenuse, or x over what? Over r. Now what is the value of x? The value of x is negative 3. What is the value of what? Of r? It was 5 minus negative 3 over 5 multiplied by 4 over what? Over 5. You can click it in your